I stood in my kitchen holding the brochure, the photo of my house staring up at me like a lie told with a smile. Coming soon. 212 Oakwood Lane. My house, listed without my consent. Through the window, I heard my son's voice float in. She's just staying until we sell. After raising him alone, after giving him this roof when grief nearly swallowed me whole, I was now just staying, like a tenant in the home I built. My own son. And his wife? She called my life clutter. All right. Before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The morning light slanted through the kitchen window, pale and cold, cutting across the Formica counter that had seen 40 years of breakfasts, Christmas pies, and Mason's muddy football cleats. Virginia Lane, Ginny to anyone who'd earned it, set down her mug of half-finished coffee and frowned at the glossy brochure lying in the center of the counter. At first she thought it was junk mail, but the photo stopped her. A wide shot of her own brick ranch, the white shutters she'd painted herself last spring, the pink dogwoods in bloom. Her house, the caption in neat, cheerful font read, "Coming soon, 212 Oakwood Lane, updated family home." She blinked, reread it, and felt a low, rolling chill in her chest. The words didn't fit together. Coming soon and her home in the same sentence. She reached for her reading glasses, pushed them up her nose, and scanned the fine print at the bottom. Listing agent, Erica Lane, Realty One, Carolina. Her daughter-in-law. Ginny's breath caught. She turned the brochure over. More photos. The kitchen, shot without her permission. Her curtains. Her refrigerator covered in magnets from post offices she'd worked in for 32 years. One photo even showed the dent in the hallway trim Mason had made moving in that heavy recliner after the funeral. She heard voices from the back porch, Mason's low drawl, too casual, carrying through the screen door. She's just staying until we sell. The word struck her harder than the cold morning air. Staying until we sell. Erica's voice followed, bright and brisk, the kind she used when she was pretending to be patient. Staging it around her is a nightmare. Buyers want open space, not knickknacks and old furniture. Ginny stood still, every muscle tightening. She'd known her son could be careless. He always wanted the quick way through things, but this was something colder. Calculated. She quietly slid the brochure into her hand, folded it once, and tucked it into the pocket of her housecoat. She stepped to the window, saw Mason pacing on the porch, phone to his ear, face set in concentration. Erica leaned against the rail, checking her nails like this was all routine. Ginny remembered when she'd first met her, smiling, polite, carrying a casserole dish to family dinners. Now Erica wore that same polite smile like armor. Ginny turned back to the kitchen, poured the rest of her coffee down the sink. Her hands didn't shake. They never did when she was angry. She'd sorted mail through blizzards, balanced ledgers when every dime mattered. Anger just made her sharper. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. On the table lay her checkbook, her neatly stacked receipts. Everything in order, like always. She had bought this home with her husband's insurance money after his heart attack. Every nail, every brick, every inch of paint belonged to her. Mason had moved in to help her out, then slowly started acting like the place was half his. The back door creaked open. Mason's footsteps thudded once in the hallway, then faded toward the living room. Ginny didn't move. She wanted him to think she hadn't heard. Let him feel bold a little longer. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Sheila Morris flashing on the screen. Her neighbor and oldest friend. Ginny answered quietly. "You see this yet?" Sheila asked, voice edged with disbelief. Ginny looked down at the folded brochure in her pocket, the corner already creased from her grip. "Oh, I've seen it. Front page of the neighborhood app. Erica posted it like she's the new queen of Oakwood. Said they're freeing up the property. Ginny smiled faintly, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Freeing it up, huh? She can't do that, can she? Oh, she can try, Ginny said softly, looking around her kitchen. The floral curtains, the framed pictures of Mason as a boy, the worn tile under her slippers. But it won't go the way she thinks. Outside, a car door slammed. Mason and Erica were leaving, still talking fast, too sure of themselves. Ginny set her empty mug in the sink, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and walked toward the hallway. For a moment, she paused under the family photo, the three of them smiling in front of this same house 20 years ago. She studied Mason's grin, remembered the boy who used to mow lawns for movie money. Then she looked at the woman beside him, the one she'd welcomed like a daughter, and felt something inside her settle, cold, clear, unyielding. She turned toward the front door just as Sheila called again from her porch, voice carrying through the open window. "You better sit down, Ginny," she said. "It's not just one listing anymore." Ginny froze, heart steady but eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, not just one?" The phone crackled and Sheila's voice dropped. "Erica's got your address posted on 3 real estate sites already." Ginny stared at her reflection in the window, small, silver-haired, but far from done. Her jaw tightened. "Then I guess it's time I made a listing of my own." The next morning dawned quiet, pale sunlight pooling across the hardwood floors. Ginny had been awake for hours already, sitting at the edge of her bed, the brochure unfolded on her lap like a bad omen. Her reflection, in the dresser mirror, looked almost calm, but there was a current underneath, something steady and dangerous. Down the hall, the house smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper. She moved to her desk in the spare room, where her late husband's roll top stood like a relic of a time when men still kept file folders and labeled envelopes. The lock stuck a little, but she jiggled it open, and the scent of cedar and dust greeted her like an old friend. Inside were neat rows of folders: taxes 2001-2012, utilities, home repairs. At the very back, under a manila envelope marked closing documents, Oakwood property, she found what she was looking for. She carried it to the dining table, laid it flat, and pulled her glasses down from her hair. The deed was yellowed slightly, corners softened with age, but the ink was still bold. Virginia Lane, sole owner. No cosigners, no contingencies. Her husband's name was there only on the insurance form that had made the down payment possible. Mason's wasn't anywhere in sight. Ginny traced her finger over the embossed seal, the raised notary stamp catching the morning light. "Mine," she murmured, almost to herself. She flipped through the rest of the papers, the appraisal, the inspection notes, the closing statement. Every figure, every signature, every dollar accounted for. Mason hadn't paid into a single one. He'd moved back after the funeral, promising to keep an eye on things, and she'd let him, grateful, tired, too lost in grief to see what that generosity might cost later. The phone buzzed. Sheila again. "You sitting down?" Sheila asked without preamble. "I just ran into that slick young agent. What's his name? Chase something? He was bragging about Erica landing a family inheritance property on Oakwood. Said it was going to move fast." Ginny's lips pressed together. "Inheritance," she repeated slowly, tasting the word. "That's a new one." "Apparently Mason told him his dad left it to both of you, but you're letting them handle the sale for convenience." Ginny laughed softly, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Convenience," she said. "That's one way to spin it." "You want me to go down there and straighten them out?" Sheila asked. "Because I sure can." "No," Ginny said, slipping the deed back into its folder, her voice calm but firm. "Not yet." She walked over to the hutch and pulled open a drawer filled with warranties and receipts. She began stacking everything in a neat pile: the roofing invoice from 2008, the plumbing repairs, the lawn service checks. every bit of proof that she, and she alone, had kept this house alive. By the time she finished, the table looked like a war plan. When Mason came home later that afternoon, she didn't say a word. He breezed through the kitchen with a distracted grin, kissed her on the cheek like nothing had changed. "Heading out to meet Chase," he said. "Got to finalize a few things." She only nodded, watching him leave through the screen door. The latch clicked behind him, and the silence settled back like a heavy quilt. A minute later, her phone buzzed again. Sheila, this time from her front porch. "I've been thinking," Sheila said. "They're banking on you staying quiet, being the sweet little retiree who doesn't want trouble." Ginny let that sit in the air a moment. She looked around her dining room, the walls her husband had painted, the clock they'd bought on their 20th anniversary still ticking steady. Then she smiled, slow and deliberate. "Then it's time I start making noise." Sheila chuckled. "Now that's the Ginny I know." Ginny gathered the papers, slipped them into a fresh folder, and labeled it in her neat handwriting, "Proof of ownership." The words looked almost ceremonial. She placed the folder in her tote bag, then stood by the window, watching the dogwoods sway outside. Down the street, Mason's car turned the corner, sunlight glinting off its hood as it disappeared toward downtown. Ginny's reflection in the glass looked different now, less like someone wronged, more like someone about to take control. She exhaled slowly, her decision already made. Tomorrow, she thought, she'd pay a visit to the man who'd handled her husband's estate years ago. He was slow talking, but he didn't miss details. Her phone vibrated once more. Sheila again, texting a single line that made Ginny's mouth curve upward. "You ready to rattle their cages?" Ginny typed back. "Already got the stick in hand." She slid the deed into her bag, snapped it shut, and turned off the light. The hallway felt different as she walked through it, charged, alive. At the end, the family photo waited on the wall, that frozen smile of a boy who once knew better. She tapped the glass lightly with her fingertip. "Let's see how you handle this one, son," she whispered. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, early for spring, but fitting. By late morning, the thunder from the night before had rolled out, leaving Raleigh washed clean and bright. The air smelled of wet brick and magnolia blossoms, and the dogwoods dripped faintly in the breeze. Inside Ginny's kitchen, sunlight caught the rim of her coffee cup as she arranged the papers on the dining table, each one squared, each corner aligned as if she were prepping evidence for a trial. A soft knock came at the front door. "Back here," she called. Owen Peck stepped inside, brushing a few rain flecks off his worn leather briefcase. He looked the same as he had when he'd handled her husband's estate, broad-shouldered, slow in his movements, but with a gaze that missed nothing. He nodded once, polite but professional. "Mrs. Lane," he said. "Ginny," she corrected. "We've known each other too long for that." He gave a half smile and set his case on the chair before sitting down. "Sheila told me what's going on. Let's take a look." Ginny passed him the folder marked Proof of Ownership. He slid the deed out carefully, eyes scanning the page while the ticking clock filled the silence. The paper's age didn't seem to bother him. He handled it like a surgeon, precise, unhurried. After a moment, he nodded. "Full title in your name? No secondary signatories, no trust encumbrances." He tapped the embossed seal. "You're the sole owner, Mrs. Excuse me, Ginny. Always have been." Ginny folded her hands on the table. "They're trying to sell something they don't own," she said quietly. Owen leaned back, his expression unreadable. "That's what it looks like." They listed it online, took photos, even printed brochures. Erica used her business license for it. Mason stood right there while she did it. He reached for a pen, clicking it once. "Then we'll shut it down before they even know they're exposed." "How?" she asked. Preemptive listing block, Owen said. Filed directly with the county registry and the major MLS networks. Once it's logged, any attempted sale under their names will flag as fraudulent. You'll stay protected while we build out the paper trail. Ginny felt something uncoil inside her, a small, cautious relief edged with defiance. And if they try anyway? Owen's gaze lifted from the documents. Then they'll learn what happens when you pick a fight with paper and ink. Courts love records more than emotions. Before she could answer, the side door swung open. Sheila breezed in, carrying a loaf of banana bread wrapped in foil and a folded sheet of notebook paper. Didn't mean to interrupt, she said, setting the bread on the table. But this meeting looked like it could use carbs. Ginny smiled despite herself. You always know when to bring reinforcements. Sheila winked, then handed the paper to Owen. And this is my contribution to the cause. Owen unfolded it. A handwritten list, tight cursive covering both sides. What am I looking at? Nosy neighbors, Sheila said proudly. Every last one who saw Mason hauling furniture in, Erica taking those house photos, and that fancy Realtor car parked outside for hours. Half of them have Ring doorbells. The other half have opinions. Owen chuckled under his breath. We'll bury them in witnesses if we need to. Sheila grinned, satisfied. That's what I like to hear. Ginny looked between them, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of team, of quiet power gathering in her corner. The years of being careful, polite, deferential, they'd trained everyone to underestimate her. Maybe that was about to change. Owen stacked the papers neatly, sliding them back toward her. I'll take copies of these. We'll file the block today. You'll get confirmation by tomorrow morning. Keep the originals safe. Ginny nodded, tucking the documents back into their folder with precise movements. I'll lock them up. He stood, adjusting his jacket. You did the right thing calling me, Ginny. Most folks panic when family turns against them. You organized. She smiled faintly. It's what postal clerks do best. Sort the mess. Owen's mouth twitched in approval. Then let's start delivering some consequences. As he headed for the door, Sheila cut another piece of banana bread, handing it to Ginny. You know, she said softly, there's something satisfying about watching a woman stand her ground. Ginny looked at the slice in her hand, then out the window at the sun breaking through the clouds, lighting up the wet street. Across the road, a for sale sign leaned against Mason's car, still wrapped in plastic. Let them keep planning, Ginny murmured. They don't know what's already coming for them. Owen paused at the doorway, his voice low but firm. By the time I'm done, they'll wish they'd stuck to lemonade stands. The door closed behind him, leaving the scent of rain and paper in the air. Ginny set her coffee down, gaze steady on that for sale sign glinting in the sunlight. Her reflection in the window met her eyes, calm, composed, but unmistakably ready. By Friday morning, the air had that crisp, restless feel that comes before a southern storm. The dogwoods rustled outside Ginny's window as she laid a set of new brass keys on the kitchen counter. 3 of them, neatly tagged with masking tape in her small, steady handwriting. Front door, side entry, garage. The locksmith, a young man named Dion with careful hands and a nervous politeness, tightened the last screw on the deadbolt. You're all set, ma'am. These locks won't match anything they've got. Ginny nodded, passing him an envelope. Appreciate you coming by early. He glanced toward the door, hesitating. You expecting trouble? She smiled, thin, knowing. Just cleaning up what's mine. When he left, she locked the door behind him and stood a moment in the quiet. The rhythm of the bolt sliding home sounded final, almost ceremonial. By 10 o'clock, she was on the phone with the utility companies, her checkbook open beside her. Yes, ma'am, she said into the receiver. I'd like to remove Mason Lane's name from the billing account and keep service under mine alone, effective immediately. The representative on the other end sounded apologetic. "We can do that right now, Mrs. Lane. I see the original account holder was you anyway." "Still is," Ginny said, and the line crackled faintly as she signed the new authorization form with a firm stroke. She hung up, exhaled slowly, then reached for the laminated sign she'd printed that morning. The black block letters were bold, centered perfectly. "Private property, no showings, trespassers will be reported." She slipped on her garden shoes, stepped out into the warm, damp air, and planted the sign firmly in the middle of the yard. The metal stake sank into the soft earth with a satisfying crunch. From across the street, Sheila gave a little whistle. "That's making a statement," she called. Ginny grinned. "Good. I want it to." Within an hour, Sheila's grandson Tyler arrived, a lanky college kid with a backpack full of tools and that eager confidence of someone who could make technology dance. "Mom says you need security cameras?" he asked. "Doorbell first," Ginny said, pointing toward the front stoop. "And make sure it records audio." He nodded, setting to work. The faint hum of the drill filled the air while Ginny sat on the porch swing, sweet tea in hand. The mint leaves clinked against the glass, cool and steady. Tyler tested the feed on his phone. "You'll get a notification anytime someone walks up. Want me to show you?" She leaned over, watching the clear live view of her porch appear on the screen. The sight of her own front door, her door, under her control again, felt better than she expected. "Perfect," she said. "Send the app to my phone, would you?" When he left, she stood there a while longer, the hum of cicadas rising in the heat. The neighborhood looked peaceful. Kids' bikes in driveways, someone's sprinkler hissing in the distance. But she knew that calm wouldn't last. By mid-afternoon, her instincts were right. A silver SUV eased to a stop in front of her house, the kind with magnetic Realty 1 Carolina decals on the doors. Erica stepped out, dressed in crisp white slacks and a coral blouse, carrying a tote full of staging fabrics and a box labeled accent pieces. Her hair was perfect, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Ginny didn't move from the front window. Erica walked briskly to the porch, her heels clicking, phone to her ear. "Yes, Chase, I'm here now. No, she's not supposed to be in during showings. We'll get the photos redone once we clear her out." She reached for the doorknob and stopped short when it didn't turn. Confused, she tried again, rattling it harder this time. The sound echoed faintly through the hall. Then she noticed the new lock, the tiny glint of brass catching in the afternoon light. Ginny took a slow sip of her tea. Through the glass, she could see Erica's face shift. Confusion first, then irritation. Erica stepped back, shading her eyes to peer through the window. Her expression faltered when she met Ginny's gaze directly. Ginny set down her glass, walked to the door, and cracked it open just enough for her voice to carry. "Afternoon," she said mildly. "Ginny," Erica began, voice sugary but taut. "We've got buyers scheduled. I just need to—" "No buyers today," Ginny said, her tone even. "Or any day. Not without my consent." Erica laughed once, brittle. "You can't block the showing, it's family property." Ginny leaned a shoulder against the frame, unbothered. "According to my lawyer, it's private property. You should read the sign." Erica's jaw tightened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Ginny smiled faintly. "Oh, I haven't even started." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was thick, charged, cicadas buzzing louder in the silence. Finally, Erica turned, muttering something under her breath as she stalked back to the SUV. She tossed the staging box into the back seat and slammed the door hard enough to make the "for sale" sign rattle in the trunk. As the SUV pulled away, Ginny's phone buzzed, an alert from the new door camera, motion detected, front porch. She opened the feed, watching Erica's brief scowl freeze on screen before disappearing into the road's glare. Ginny chuckled softly, then took her tea back to the window seat. Outside, the sign in the yard gleamed white against the green lawn. Behind her, thunder rumbled again, far off, but moving closer. She took another slow sip, savoring the sound. Monday morning, the air hung thick with humidity, the kind that made Raleigh feel like it was sweating. Ginny sat across from Owen Peck in his quiet office downtown, the faint tick of a ceiling fan keeping time above them. His desk was a fortress of order, file stacks squared to the inch, a small brass lamp casting a golden glow on the mahogany surface. "All right," he said, sliding a folder toward her. "If they're trying to sell what isn't theirs, you're going to do the next best thing. Beat them to it." Ginny adjusted her glasses, peering at the draft paperwork. The letterhead read, "Private Sale Agreement," in bold print. "You're saying I sell it myself?" Owen nodded. "Off-market, clean cash buyer, someone I trust. Quiet transaction, no MLS, no public records until it's done. You'll walk away with the full equity before Mason and Erica even realize they've lost their footing." He flipped a page, pointing to a line near the bottom. "Once the funds clear, we'll transfer title directly to the buyer. Simple as breathing." Ginny looked down at the pen beside the papers. Her hand didn't tremble when she picked it up. "How did we get here, Owen?" she asked softly. He shrugged. "You raised a son who forgot what gratitude looks like. Happens more than you'd think." Ginny's lips curved faintly. "Well, let's remind him." She signed each line deliberately, slow strokes, a lifetime of signatures honed behind postal counters and mortgage desks. Each letter of Virginia Lane looked crisp and final. When she finished, Owen gathered the documents, tapping them into a tidy stack. "I'll reach out to the buyer this afternoon. He's been looking for a property in Oakwood. Likes solid builds, long-term value. You'll like him." "Does he know about the drama?" she asked. He grinned, just a little. "He knows it's none of his business, which is even better." Ginny nodded, standing to leave. "Then let's get it done before they try another stunt." By the time she pulled into her driveway that evening, the air was heavy again, clouds swelling dark over the horizon. She unlocked her front door, the new brass key turning smoothly in the lock. Inside, the house felt still. Too still. Then she heard it. Muffled voices down the hall. Her pulse sharpened. She walked toward the sound, her slippers silent on the floorboards. Mason's voice came first, low and angry. "You changed the locks? Without telling me?" He stepped out of the living room as she rounded the corner, his face red, jaw clenched. Behind him, Erica stood near the mantel, arms crossed, still dressed like she'd come straight from a showing, heels clicking as she shifted her weight. Ginny didn't flinch. "This is my home. You don't need a key." Mason threw up his hands. "You're ruining everything. Do you even know what this place is worth right now? We could have cleared the debt. Started fresh." "We?" Ginny echoed. "You mean me?" He blinked, caught off guard. She stepped closer, voice low but steady. "You're trying to sell something you don't own, Mason. You're calling that family? I call it theft." Erica let out a short, bitter laugh. "You've lost it, Ginny. This isn't about ownership. It's about doing what's smart for everyone. You're sitting on equity like it's a trophy." Ginny turned her head toward her, calm as ever. "You mean protecting what's mine?" Erica scoffed. "You're being a spiteful old woman." Ginny's eyes met hers, cool and level. "That's Ms. Lane to you." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. Even Mason looked uncertain, his bravado wavering. "You can both leave now," Ginny said. "I have things to do." Erica glared. "You can't just—" But Ginny had already turned, walking back toward the kitchen. The conversation was over. By the time the front door slammed and their car engine faded down the street, she was standing at the sink, hands steady as she washed her glass. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall. The house felt lighter somehow. Emptier, yes, but also freer. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Owen Peck. She answered, still watching the rain streak the window. Evening, Owen. His tone carried a trace of excitement. Hope you're sitting down, Ginny. That buyer I told you about? He just signed the offer. Full cash, no contingencies. She didn't speak at first. The rhythm of the rain filled the pause. Want to accept? He asked. Ginny set the glass down gently. I do. Owen chuckled. I'll file the acceptance in the morning. Congratulations. You just sold your house before they ever could. She smiled. Slow, fierce, and utterly satisfied. Outside, thunder cracked hard across the sky, shaking the windows. The next morning, Raleigh woke under a soft gray sky, the streets still shining from the night's rain. Ginny sat at her dining table in her blue housecoat, a pen in hand and a cup of coffee cooling beside her. The contract from Owen lay open in front of her. Final, official, hers to sign. She read it once more, tracing each line like scripture. Purchase price, full cash offer. Closing, 21 days. When she set the pen to the paper, there was no hesitation. The signature looked elegant, deliberate, and deeply personal. Done, she murmured. Across town, at the Realty One office, Chase Wilkins was still convinced the property was about to hit the open market. His assistant was assembling flyers. A banner stood ready by the front desk. Coming soon, 212. Oakwood Lane, historic brick ranch. The team chattered about weekend showings and prime curb appeal. Chase had no idea that the real listing, the only legal one, was already under contract and locked away in Owen Peck's files. Ginny, meanwhile, was taking no chances. By afternoon, she'd met with Owen again in his office, where he handed her a sealed envelope. This is the formal notice, he explained, delivered to Mason and Erica, certified. It clearly states they have no ownership or entry rights. You're backed by the county record now. Ginny took the envelope, its weight strangely satisfying. Let's make sure they get it loud and clear. That same evening, she slid the envelope into Mason's mailbox herself. She stood a moment in the fading light, watching the neighborhood glow with porch lamps and the faint chirp of crickets. The act felt small but monumental, an invisible line drawn in the sand. Across the street, Sheila was already outside, leaning against her railing with a mischievous grin. So what's the next move, Counselor Lane? Ginny chuckled. Keeping people where they belong. Then you'll want these. Sheila waved two bright yellow metal signs fresh from the hardware store. No trespassing, enforced by law. Ginny helped her plant them at the corners of the lawn, one near the mailbox, the other beside the dogwood tree. Each post drove into the damp soil with a satisfying thunk. Bold, Sheila said, brushing off her hands. I like bold. Inside, Ginny checked her phone. The door camera feed sat open on her screen, the new security alert system Owen had installed, syncing perfectly with her number. She watched her front porch in real time, the brass handle glinting, the reflection of the dogwood swaying across the glass, her fortress. But peace in Oakwood never lasted long. The next afternoon, her phone pinged. A door camera alert. She tapped it open and froze. Erica. The feed showed her on the porch in a navy suit. One hand clutching a clipboard, the other a bundle of glossy open house flyers. The camera mic caught her voice, muffled but sharp. Buyers are asking questions, Chase. I need interior shots, whether she likes it or not. Ginny rose from the table, heart steady but cold. She moved to the window, just in time to see Erica kneel by the lock, tugging at it like a challenge. The door didn't budge. Come on, Erica muttered, yanking harder. Ginny watched her on the screen. Every movement, every frustrated sigh, while the camera timestamp blinked red in the corner. Evidence. Clear. Perfect evidence. The porch creaked as Erica leaned close to the glass, peering inside. Ginny, she called, voice snapping like brittle glass. You can't do this. You're holding up the deal. Ginny opened the front door a few inches, just enough for her voice to carry. There is no deal, she said calmly. Erica turned, startled. You can't block a showing. This isn't a showing, Ginny replied, her eyes steady. It's trespassing. Erica's mouth opened, closed, then twisted into a bitter sneer. You think this makes you look strong? Everyone's going to see what kind of woman you are. Ginny's smile didn't reach her eyes. Good. I hope they do. For a long second, the two women stared at each other through the narrow gap of the door, the old and the ambitious, the betrayed and the defiant. Then Erica spun on her heel and stormed down the steps, heels striking the wood like hammer blows. As the SUV screeched away, Ginny's phone buzzed again. Her security app automatically saving the clip, labeling it unauthorized attempt, front door. She exhaled, leaning against the doorframe, the faint scent of rain and cut grass drifting through the crack. Outside, the yellow no trespassing signs gleamed against the evening light. Across the street, Sheila raised her glass of iced tea in silent salute. Ginny returned the gesture with a small nod. One step at a time, she murmured. Then her phone buzzed again. This time a text from Owen. Buyer confirmed. Deposit wired. Title processing begins tomorrow. She stared at the message for a moment, then smiled, slow and proud. The house, her house, was almost out of their reach forever. By Wednesday morning, the air in Oakwood had turned still again, quiet but charged, like the breath before thunder. Ginny stood in the clinic's waiting room, purse clutched under her arm, her glasses perched low on her nose as she filled out the new patient information form. The paper was familiar, but today it felt like a declaration. When the nurse called her name, Ginny followed her into the small office lined with framed diplomas and faded botanical prints. The nurse smiled. Just updating your chart, Ms. Lane. Anything new we should know? Ginny slid her reading glasses higher. Yes, she said, her voice calm but deliberate. I need to remove Mason Lane as my emergency contact and medical power of attorney. The nurse blinked. Would you like to list a replacement? 2, Ginny said, pulling a note card from her wallet. Sheila Morris and Owen Peck. The nurse entered the names without question, typing briskly. All right, that's been updated in the system. Anything else? No, Ginny said, a small smile forming. That'll do. As she left, the automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss. Outside, the sky was a pale, endless blue, and she felt something uncoil in her chest, a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. The ties she'd just cut weren't paper ones. They were the kind that had quietly strangled her for years. Back home, the house felt cooler, lighter. The no trespassing signs glared bright from the lawn, defiant and proud. Ginny set her purse on the counter and checked her phone. A new text blinked on the screen. Mason, we're family, Mom. Why are you doing this? She stared at the message for a moment, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then she typed slowly, deliberately. Ginny, so act like it. No more explanations, no justifications, just truth, clean and simple. She set the phone down and turned to the counter, where a sack of cornmeal sat beside a carton of buttermilk. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon and old wood polish as she began to mix the batter, her motions practiced and calm. The rhythm of it soothed her, stirring, folding, pouring. She didn't need to think. Her hands remembered. The oven warmed the room, the hum of it steady as a heartbeat. This cornbread wasn't for Mason or Erica. It was for the new buyer, someone who valued what this home represented. Someone who'd carry it forward without lies, without entitlement. Ginny buttered the cast iron pan, poured the golden batter in, and slid it into the oven. The scent filled the air, sweet and rich, wrapping around her like memory. Her phone buzzed again. She wiped her hands and glanced at the screen. Erica this time. She didn't answer. The first call came, then a second. On the third, Ginny finally played the voicemail. Erica's voice, brittle and shaky, somewhere between fury and tears. Ginny, please. Mason's not himself right now. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Just call me back, okay? We're family. We can fix this. Ginny stood there a moment, listening to the silence after the message ended. The oven ticked softly behind her. Family. The word didn't sting anymore. It sounded like something she'd already buried. She deleted the message without replaying it, then opened her kitchen cabinet to pull out a woven basket. Into it went a folded gingham cloth, a jar of local honey, and the warm cornbread wrapped in foil. She added a small handwritten note on thick stationery. Welcome to your new home, Virginia Lane. When the timer on her phone chimed, she didn't flinch. She tied the basket with a soft ribbon and set it by the door. Through the front window, the dogwoods trembled in the breeze. The storm clouds that had been flirting with the horizon all morning began to build again, dark and slow. Sheila's voice floated from her porch next door. You baking something, Ginny? Ginny opened the door and smiled. Just a gift for the next chapter. Sheila grinned, eyes twinkling. Something tells me it's not for Mason. Ginny's smile deepened. He's not on the list. Thunder rolled distantly, echoing down the street, and the sky dimmed a shade darker. Ginny watched the clouds shift and thought, not of loss, but of the clean freedom of new beginnings. Her phone vibrated once more, but she didn't bother looking this time. Instead, she crossed the living room, picked up the basket, and set it on the table beside her folder of closing documents. By Saturday morning, the sky over Raleigh had cleared to a hard, brilliant blue. Ginny sat at her kitchen table, a laptop open before her, the same one she mostly used to order groceries or read weather updates. But today, her cursor blinked in the white box of the Oakwood Neighborhood Forum, a place known more for bake sale announcements and lost cat notices than public reckonings. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard for a long moment before she began to type. Subject: a clarification about 212 Oakwood Lane. Good morning, neighbors. I've seen some confusion about my home being listed for sale. I want to clear that up. My late husband and I purchased this house in 1989. The deed has always been in my name. Recently, some family members took actions to sell it without my knowledge or consent. Legal steps have been taken to protect my property and my peace. I appreciate those of you who've reached out with concern. It's still my home, for now, and I'm grateful to live among such kind people. She reread it once, twice. There was no bitterness, no accusation. Just truth. Simple, measured, immovable. Then she hit post. Within minutes, the first comment appeared. Nancy W. Good for you, Ms. Lane. I saw those signs and wondered what was happening. Family or not, that's awful. Then another. Bill K. You've been in that house longer than anyone on this street. Don't let anyone push you out. And another. Martha P. Saw the listing. Can't believe they'd do that. You've always kept that place immaculate. We're behind you 100%. The comments multiplied, spilling down the page faster than Ginny could refresh. By noon, the thread had grown into a chorus of support. Neighbors offering rides, home-cooked meals, or just the kind of solidarity that didn't ask for explanation. Across the street, Sheila appeared on her porch with her phone in hand and a grin wide enough to split the morning. You've broken the internet, Ginny, she called. Oakwood's turned into your personal fan club. Ginny smiled, leaning against her doorframe. About time they heard the real story. By that afternoon, Owen had seen it too. He called from his office, his voice low but gleeful. You might want to check your email, Ginny. I've sent a few attachments you'll enjoy. She opened them. 3 crisp screenshots of emails, all stamped with official letterheads from Realty One Carolina. In them, Owen had forwarded evidence, Erica's unauthorized listings, Mason's recorded statements, and the door camera clip of Erica trying to enter the house. The subject line on Owen's message to the brokerage was simple and devastating: unauthorized representation of private property, 212 Oakwood Lane. By early evening, Ginny's phone buzzed again. This time, it was Owen's short follow-up text. Owen. Brokerage response? They've pulled Erica's license for the address and suspended Mason's associate privileges. Ginny sat back, exhaling through a smile that was more weary than triumphant. And so, she said softly, the walls start to close. Sheila stopped by not long after, arms full of grocery bags and that mischievous glint in her eye. You free tonight? She asked. Because we're having a little something on my porch. Ginny arched an eyebrow. A little something? Just a few of the neighbors, Sheila said. Nothing fancy. Call it a farewell toast. To who? Sheila's grin widened. Mason and Erica, of course. Word around the block is they won't be showing their faces here anytime soon. That evening, as the sun sank over the dogwoods, Ginny stepped onto Sheila's porch. The crowd was small but spirited. Half a dozen neighbors with folding chairs, glasses of sweet tea, and the hum of satisfaction that comes when justice tips the right way. Sheila raised her cup. To truth, and to Ms. Lane, who taught Oakwood how to mind its own business by making sure everyone minded hers. Laughter rippled through the group, easy and warm. Ginny chuckled, shaking her head. You're terrible, she said. Sheila winked, and proud of it. Later, as the others drifted home, Ginny lingered on the porch, watching lightning bugs blink across the yard. The air was soft, full of that deep Carolina quiet that comes after a storm of gossip has passed. Her phone buzzed again, a notification from a local real estate Facebook group. Breaking: Erica Lane temporarily demoted by Realty One Carolina following misrepresentation of property ownership. Ginny stared at it for a long moment, the glow of the screen reflecting in her glasses. The comments below were brutal. Agents distancing themselves, acquaintances offering half-hearted sympathy. She set the phone down and took a deep breath of the cool evening air. Vindication didn't feel loud or flashy. It felt quiet, steady, like a balance restored. Sheila came back out with 2 slices of pound cake on paper plates. For victory, she said, handing one over. Ginny smiled, taking the fork. For peace, she corrected. The 2 women ate in silence, watching the porch light flicker. Across the street, Mason's driveway sat empty, the house dark, curtains drawn tight. For the first time in months, Ginny felt no anger when she looked that way. Only distance. The kind you earned, not the kind you escaped. The morning sun glinted off the freshly waxed floors of the title office, catching the brass edges of framed diplomas and the faint smell of lemon polish. Ginny sat across from a young title representative named Tessa, a woman with kind eyes and nails painted a shade of sky blue. The folder between them was thick, tabbed, and unmistakably final. So this is it, Tessa said gently, sliding the top page forward. Final walkthrough went perfect yesterday. Buyer's thrilled. Said he can't believe how well you've kept the place. Ginny smiled, the faintest curve of her mouth. He'll take good care of it, I can tell. You sure you're ready? Ginny's gaze drifted to the window where the Raleigh skyline shimmered in the late morning haze. She nodded once. I've been ready for years. I just didn't know it. Tessa handed her a pen, the kind with the office logo embossed on the side. Ginny read through every line, steady and unhurried, before signing. Each signature felt like both a surrender and a reclaiming. She wasn't losing her home, she was choosing her freedom. When the last page was complete, she leaned back. That's that, she murmured. Tessa smiled. Congratulations, Ms. Lane. You're officially at the finish line. As Ginny walked out of the title office, the autumn light hit her face just right. Bright but soft, the kind that made the whole world look cleaner. Back at the house, Sheila waited in the driveway with a cardboard box and her trademark impatience. You took long enough, she said, squinting against the sun. Paperwork, Ginny replied. It's like molasses with ink. Sheila grinned, handing over a roll of packing tape. Let's get to it then. You'd think we were moving the Smithsonian with the way you've labeled everything. Ginny laughed, a sound lighter than it had been in months. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and the distant sweetness of baked cornbread. She'd already boxed most of what mattered: photographs, her husband's old Navy watch, a handful of postcards from her early career at the post office. Sheila started wrapping a set of floral teacups in newspaper. You keeping these? Ginny shook her head. Leave them. They belong here more than I do. From the corner, her phone buzzed, a voicemail notification. Ginny wiped her hands on her slacks, pressed play, and stood still as Mason's voice filled the room. Mom, it's me. Look, I know I screwed up. I was stupid, all right? I thought I could fix things, but now it's all gone sideways. Please, just don't go through with it yet. Give me a little time. His tone cracked halfway through, the anger gone, replaced with something smaller, almost frightened. Ginny's thumb hovered over the phone, but she didn't replay it. She didn't delete it either. Instead, she opened a new message and typed 6 simple words. I already gave it, Mason. She hit send, placed the phone face down, and went back to packing. By late afternoon, Owen arrived, his expression as calm and precise as always. He stepped through the doorway with a thick envelope tucked under his arm. We're good, he said simply. Funds cleared, recording complete. It's done. Ginny looked up from the box she was sealing. That fast? He smiled. Cash buyers don't waste time. Your account's already credited. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she reached out, grasped his hand, and squeezed. Thank you, Owen. For everything. Just doing my job, he said, but there was warmth behind it. You handled this better than most. Most people break somewhere along the way. Ginny smiled faintly. I had practice. Owen nodded once, then left her with the keys and the silence of a house now in transition. As twilight settled, the neighborhood softened into gold. Sheila helped her carry the last box to the porch. Feels strange, doesn't it? She asked. Ginny looked back through the open door, at the empty living room, the faint outline where her husband's recliner used to sit, the clean walls stripped of memory. It does, she said quietly, but strange doesn't mean wrong. She set the final box in Sheila's trunk and turned back toward the house. The porch light flickered automatically, casting a warm glow across the doorway. Her phone buzzed again, a new email from Owen. She opened it, scanning quickly. Subject: confirmation of closing message. Deed recorded. Title transferred. Buyer now holds full ownership. Ginny exhaled, the weight of the words settling in. It was official. The home she'd protected, defended, and rebuilt her life around no longer belonged to her. Sheila watched her, eyes soft. You okay? Ginny nodded slowly, then smiled. I think I am. She took one last look at the little brick ranch under the dim porch light, its dogwoods rustling faintly in the evening wind. Time to let it breathe again, she whispered. As they drove away, the house grew smaller in the rearview mirror until it disappeared behind the curve of the road. And then Ginny's phone lit up one last time. Another voicemail. This one from an unknown number. She played it through the car's speaker. A man's voice, smooth and polite. Ms. Lane, this is Thomas Avery, the buyer. I just wanted to say thank you. I have plans for the place. Something meaningful. I think you'll like what it becomes. Ginny's eyes flickered toward the road ahead, her reflection steady in the glass. The morning Ginny moved out, the world seemed almost too quiet. The early sun poured through the kitchen window, catching on the dust motes floating above the now bare countertops. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound left. Every drawer stood empty, every shelf wiped clean. She set the single brass key, the one that had opened this house for 35 years, on the counter beside a folded note. For the new owner. Keep it kind. V. Lane. Her hand lingered over the note for a moment before she stepped back and looked around the room one last time. It smelled faintly of lemon oil and old pine floors. Home, even now. Out front, Sheila honked twice, her little sedan idling at the curb. Ginny grabbed her tote, took a final sweep of the living room, and paused by the front door. "Thank you," she whispered, not to anyone in particular, just to the walls, to the air, to the quiet itself. She locked the door from the inside, then pulled it shut behind her. The latch clicked like punctuation. As she was easing down the driveway, she saw Mason's SUV swing into the street, tires crunching over the gravel shoulder. Erica sat beside him, sunglasses on, her jaw tight. They must have seen the moving truck leave earlier. Mason jumped out first. "Mom!" His voice cracked with disbelief. "You actually did it." Ginny rolled the window down halfway. "It's done, Mason." He took a step closer. "You sold it out from under us? What are we supposed to do now?" Before she could answer, Erica was out of the car, slamming the door. "Do you even realize what you've done to us?" she demanded. Her voice was sharp, brittle, the sound of pride splintering. "We've got nowhere to go. No listings, no leverage. You ruined us." Ginny studied her for a moment. There was no satisfaction in her gaze, just a clear, unflinching calm. "You've got options," she said evenly. "Just not mine." Erica blinked, caught off guard by the gentleness in the tone. Mason's voice softened, almost pleading. "Mom, we're family. You didn't have to—" Ginny interrupted quietly. "Family doesn't sell each other out." He opened his mouth again, but nothing came. His shoulders sagged. The wind shifted then, carrying the faint rustle of the dogwoods across the yard. The air smelled like rain on hot pavement. Ginny could feel the storm coming, the sky low and heavy, pressing against the horizon. She rolled the window back up, her face unreadable. Sheila leaned over from the passenger seat. "Ready?" Ginny gave a small nod. "Ready." As Sheila put the car in gear, Erica stepped forward, hand raised like she might stop them. But she didn't. She just stood there, her eyes glassy, mouth half open as the sedan eased past. Through the rearview mirror, Ginny caught one last glimpse of them standing together in the driveway, Mason with his hands in his hair, Erica pacing in frustrated circles, her coral blouse catching the wind. Sheila glanced over, eyebrows raised. "Want to say something?" "No," Ginny said softly. "They wouldn't hear it anyway." They rode in silence for a while, the old oak-lined streets of Oakwood giving way to the quiet hum of the highway. The sun slipped behind a thick cloud, and for the first time in years, Ginny felt the air open up around her, wide and clean. Sheila reached for the radio and found a jazz station, low and easy. "You okay?" Ginny exhaled slowly. "Better than I expected." "You sure you don't want to do a little victory dance?" Sheila teased. Ginny's mouth curved into a small smile. "This is the victory dance." They shared a quiet laugh as the miles rolled under the tires. Behind them, in another part of town, Erica sat in the parked SUV scrolling through her phone, trying to salvage her online image. Notifications poured in from real estate groups, colleagues gossiping, some unfollowing, others pitying. Her polished profile photo had become a magnet for quiet disdain. Then, as if to punctuate it all, a small notification popped up on her screen. "I Chase Wilkins. Realtor unfollowed you." Her hand froze over the screen. For the first time that day, she didn't speak. Back on the road, Sheila turned onto a smaller street lined with tall oaks and the distant glow of a coffee shop sign. "So," she said, "where to first, Ginny?" Ginny looked out at the horizon, open, unclaimed. Anywhere but back. They stopped at a red light, the rain starting to fall in slow, deliberate drops. Ginny traced one with her fingertip down the window pane. She didn't glance in the mirror. She didn't need to. The past was behind her now. Locked, sold, sealed. The retirement credit union sat at the edge of downtown Raleigh, tucked between a flower shop and an old diner that still smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee. Its glass doors gleamed under the morning sun, clean and quiet. The kind of place that didn't ask too many questions if your paperwork was in order. Ginny stepped inside, her sensible flats clicking softly on the tile. The air conditioning carried a faint scent of lavender and printer ink. A young teller with a neat bun and kind eyes smiled as Ginny approached the counter. "Good morning, ma'am. What can we do for you today?" Ginny opened her leather tote and slid a white envelope across the counter. "I'd like to open a new account," she said, calm and precise. "Private savings, no joint access, no linked cards." The teller's smile didn't falter. "Of course. Do you have your identification?" Ginny handed over her license, her voice steady. "And I'd like to discuss a trust designation once the account is active." Within minutes, they were seated at a small desk near the window, paperwork neatly stacked between them. Ginny's pen moved with practiced efficiency, her signature looping across the forms like she'd been waiting for this moment. When the teller turned to make copies, Ginny looked out at the parking lot. The magnolia tree swaying in the wind, the shimmer of sunlight bouncing off car roofs. Her reflection in the glass looked almost unfamiliar, lighter somehow, as if every decision of the past few weeks had peeled away a layer she no longer needed. The teller returned, smiling. "All set, Ms. Lane. Your account is active. Will you be making your initial deposit today?" Ginny reached into her tote again and placed a cashier's check on the desk, the full amount from the house sale. The teller's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Would you like a printed balance?" Ginny smiled faintly. "No need. I'll know it's there." She slid one more document across the desk, a single-page instruction from Owen Peck's office, notarized and sealed. "And this," she added, "appoints my attorney, Mr. Owen Peck, as trustee and legal guardian of the account." The teller nodded approvingly. "That's very wise, Ms. Lane. Everything will be protected under his oversight." "I'm counting on it," Ginny said. As she signed the final confirmation, she felt an almost physical shift, like the click of a lock turning in her favor. Across town, Mason stared at his phone, jaw tight, a cold sweat beating at the back of his neck. The numbers on his banking app glared up at him like a taunt. 128.34. He swiped again, hoping it was a mistake, but the overdraft warning remained. The credit card balance was worse. The line of credit he'd been counting on had vanished, apparently tied to the house equity that no longer existed. "Damn it," he muttered, slamming the phone onto the kitchen table. Erica sat at the counter, scrolling through social media with red-rimmed eyes. Her profile photo, a headshot in perfect lighting, Realtor smile intact, was still there, but the engagement was gone. Posts that once got hundreds of likes now sat empty, except for a few awkward pity comments. She stared at the blinking cursor in the new post box, her fingers trembling slightly before she typed, "Family betrayal hurts most." She hit post, then stared at it for a long moment, waiting for someone to care. None of her colleagues commented. Only a few heart emojis from acquaintances she barely knew. She shut the app with a sound somewhere between a sigh and a curse. Mason looked at her, his voice rough. "What do we do now?" Erica didn't answer. She just stared out the window, the edges of her world suddenly smaller, sharper. meaner than she'd ever imagined. Across town, the world was quieter. Ginny parked her car in front of a small brick cottage nestled behind a row of crepe myrtles. The front porch was shaded, a rocking chair already waiting, a welcome home mat that looked freshly laid out. She smiled at the simplicity of it. No pretense, no ghosts in the corners. Inside, the cottage smelled faintly of pine cleaner and new beginnings. The furniture was modest: a small couch, a maple table, a single bed dressed in white linens. Everything she needed and nothing she didn't. She unpacked one box, the essentials: her husband's old watch, a framed photo of them by the dogwoods, and a worn recipe card in her own handwriting. She set them gently on the mantel, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. The day's light stretched across the wooden floors, soft and golden. Ginny slipped off her shoes, set her phone on silent, and lay down on the couch. The quiet filled the room like a blanket, warm, complete, and merciful. Outside, a neighbor's wind chime tinkled in the breeze. For the first time in months, maybe years, she closed her eyes without fear of what might come next. Sleep took her quickly, deep, untroubled, honest. The first envelope arrived on a Thursday morning, slid halfway under the door of Ginny's cottage like something ashamed of itself. No return address, just Mason's handwriting, slanted and angry, scrawled across the front. She stared at it for a long time before picking it up. The weight told her what it was before she even opened it. Paper thick enough to feel official, desperate enough to feel personal. She tore the seal with one quick motion. Inside was a letter drafted in the tone of a man who'd Googled how to write a legal notice. "Mom, my attorney advised that since the property was family inherited and I was a contributing occupant, I may have a claim on the proceeds of the sale. I'll be filing a motion to dispute ownership unless you agree to mediation." It wasn't even signed properly, just Mason. Ginny exhaled through her nose, half a laugh, half disbelief. She folded the letter, slipped it back into the envelope, and set it neatly beside her coffee mug. Then she picked up the phone. "Owen," she said when he answered. "It's begun." 2 days later, Owen stood at her front door in his usual calm, the kind that didn't bend for storms. He carried a thick accordion file, edges marked with colored tabs. "Don't worry," he said as he stepped inside, brushing off his hat. "If this is what I think it is, it won't last longer than a week." Ginny poured him a cup of coffee. He called it emotion. Owen smirked. Of course he did. Mason's a man who thinks paperwork is power. Unfortunately for him, I traffic in proof. He spread the documents across her table. The deed in her name, notarized and certified. Printed photos of the house taken over the years, all under her care. Receipts for repairs, taxes, insurance. Then came the thicker section. Evidence of the false listings, the fake open house flyers, screenshots of Erica's online posts. And finally, the quiet wait at the end of the file. 3 pages of Ginny's own handwritten notes from the months after her husband's death. Dated, signed, and witnessed by Sheila. "Abuse patterns," Owen said softly. "Manipulation, coercion. Judges read between the lines." Ginny looked at the papers spread across the table. They looked less like a defense and more like a life story. Every document a testament to the truth she'd carried alone for too long. "What happens next?" she asked. Owen closed the file with a soft thump. "I file a response before lunch. Then we wait for the court clerk to realize your son doesn't have a case. Just nerve." He took one last sip of his coffee and added, "Don't lose sleep over this. He's already lost before he's begun." The next week, Mason's so-called motion was dismissed without hearing. The county clerk's stamp came down like a quiet hammer. Case closed. Insufficient grounds. Owen texted her the update first, followed by a single word: handled. Ginny didn't smile. Not exactly. It was closer to relief, to something steadier than satisfaction. That evening, Sheila came over with peach cobbler and the latest neighborhood gossip. "You hear the news?" she said, setting the dish on the counter. "Erica's agency finally did it. License suspended. They're calling it ethics review, but we both know what that means." Ginny raised an eyebrow. "How long?" "She's out indefinitely. She'll be lucky to sell lemonade after this." Ginny let out a slow breath. "Then it's done." Sheila cut them each a slice, handing one over. "Maybe for them," she said. "But you've got something bigger now. People know your name. They're talking about what you did." As if on cue, Ginny's phone rang, a local number she didn't recognize. She hesitated before answering. "Ms. Lane?" The voice was polite, professional. "This is Hannah Price from the Raleigh Chronicle. I came across your post in the Oakwood Forum and the real estate filings attached to your name. I was wondering, would you be willing to tell your story? About what happened?" Ginny looked toward the window. Outside, the sun was sinking behind the crepe myrtles, the sky gold at the edges. She could see her reflection in the glass. Steady, older, unbroken. "I don't know," she said softly. Hannah's voice was warm. "It could help others. A lot of people get pushed out like you almost did. You fought back. People notice that." There was a long pause. Then another voice cut through, the screen door creaking as Sheila leaned in from the porch. "Tell it," Sheila said simply. "Let others hear." Ginny ended the call with a promise to think about it. She sat for a long while afterward, staring at the stack of legal papers on her kitchen table. The documents that once meant defense now looked like evidence of victory. She picked up one of the pages and ran her fingers over the embossed county seal, its raised ridges catching the light. It wasn't just paper anymore. It was proof of survival. It started quietly. A headline tucked halfway down the Raleigh Chronicle's homepage on a humid Monday morning. "My house wasn't yours to sell. One woman's fight for ownership and dignity." By Hannah Price. Ginny almost missed it. She'd been tending to the small garden outside her cottage, coaxing tomato vines up a trellis, when Sheila came hustling across the yard, barefoot in her slippers and waving a phone like it was a trophy. "You're famous," she called, laughing. "Front page of the online edition. They even used that picture you hate, the one from your retirement luncheon." Ginny took the phone, squinting against the morning light. There it was. Her story, rendered in black and white. The photo caught her mid-smile, unposed and steady, the lines on her face softened by the sunlight. Hannah had written it like a tapestry, every fact woven with quiet compassion. She described how Ginny's son and daughter-in-law had tried to sell the house, how the documents proved ownership, how a retired post clerk in Oakwood had refused to be moved. By noon, the article had exploded beyond Raleigh. Comment sections filled with strangers thanking her for speaking up. "You just reminded me to check my deed. This woman's a hero. My sister lost her home to a manipulative cousin. Wish she'd had a Ginny Lane." Proof that quiet people are sometimes the loudest when it matters. Ginny scrolled through them, stunned. Not by the praise, but by the recognition. People understood. For years she'd been invisible, and now somehow her silence had turned into a voice. Sheila stood over her shoulder, proud as ever. "Told you so," she said. "You didn't just win. You lit a match." 3 days later, an envelope arrived by courier, embossed with the name Thomas Avery Foundation. Inside was a letter from the buyer himself. "Dear Ms. Lane, you don't know me well, but your courage inspired what we've done next. The property at 212 Oakwood Lane will reopen this fall as The Haven on Oakwood, a support center for women seeking refuge from domestic abuse and financial exploitation. The heart of it is your story. I'd like your permission to include your name on the dedication plaque, not as a victim, but as a founder of its spirit." With gratitude, Thomas Avery Ginny read it twice, her eyes misting. When she finally looked up, Sheila was already dabbing her own with a napkin. "You're gonna make me cry before lunch," she said. Ginny managed a shaky laugh. "He's giving it a purpose. Maybe that's what it always needed." She signed the permission slip and mailed it back the same day. 2 weeks later, she and Owen stood together under a newly painted sign, "The Haven on Oakwood," dedicated to Virginia Lane, whose strength built shelter for others. The old brick house looked both the same and entirely new. Fresh white trim, new windows, and the faint scent of pine mulch. Inside, the rooms were bright and welcoming, soft rugs, calm colors, quiet dignity. Ginny traced her fingertips over the brass plaque beside the front door. Her name gleamed in the sunlight, engraved deep and certain. Owen stood beside her, holding a folder. "I brought the final trust documents," he said quietly. "All proceeds from the sale have been moved into your retirement trust. You're secure for the rest of your life." Ginny smiled. "For once, the paper's on my side." He chuckled. "Always was. You just had to teach it who's boss." They stood in silence for a moment as the first volunteers arrived, carrying boxes of supplies through the door that used to be hers. The house didn't feel lost. It felt alive again, finally serving something larger than memory. Across town, Mason sat at a diner booth, face drawn, eyes red from lack of sleep. Every few minutes, the bell above the door jingled as another customer walked in, someone he half knew. They'd nod politely, then glance away. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his notifications. One headline after another carried the same name, his mother's. And beneath the story, the comments about him. "That son should be ashamed. Imagine doing that to your mother." He turned the phone face down, staring at his untouched coffee. When the waitress came by, she gave him a sympathetic look, but said nothing. Even pity had started to feel like judgment. Outside, through the diner window, Erica sat in the car. She wasn't looking at him. She was on her phone, typing something fast and deliberate. That evening, Ginny and Sheila sat on the cottage porch, a soft breeze rolling through the crepe myrtles. The Chronicle article had been picked up by a national outlet. Ginny's inbox overflowed with messages from readers, some asking for advice, others just thanking her for telling the truth out loud. Sheila poured 2 glasses of iced tea. "You realize you've become a celebrity, right? Oakwood's very own vigilante grandma." Ginny laughed. "Let's not make it sound like I used a cape." "Maybe just a cardigan." They clinked glasses and watched the sun drop low. Ginny's phone buzzed on the table, an incoming email. She glanced at the sender and froze. Subject: Separation Agreement, filed today. From Erica Lane. She opened it, reading the brief message beneath. "Mason doesn't know yet. I'm leaving. I think maybe you were right about him all along." Ginny stared at the screen, the sound of cicadas rising around her, like applause. She handed the phone to Sheila, who raised her brows. "Well, look at that," she said. "You didn't just win, Ginny. You rewrote the rules." Ginny leaned back in her chair, the evening light catching her silver hair, her smile small but certain. "Maybe," she said. "But I didn't do it for rules." She looked out toward the horizon where the sun burned orange through the trees. "I did it so no one could sell me short again." Morning came softly to the cottage, the kind of Carolina morning that began with birdsong and the faint smell of dew settling on the grass. Ginny sat on her porch in her robe, a cup of coffee steaming beside her, and her new companion, an aging beagle named Scout, curled at her feet. He'd been a rescue from the county shelter, calm and stubborn in equal measure, a creature who liked quiet and didn't need explaining. Together, they had fallen into a rhythm that felt like breathing again. The world around her had slowed to something she could love, the whisper of wind through crepe myrtles, the steady hum of a neighbor's mower, the scent of earth after rain. Scout raised his head, ears twitching as footsteps crunched up the walkway. Sheila appeared, as always, without knocking, basket in hand, straw hat tilted low. "Mornin', Ginny," she said cheerfully. "Got you some garden clippings? Basil, rosemary, and those zinnias that refuse to die." Ginny smiled, standing to greet her. "Those flowers are tougher than both of us put together." "Wouldn't go that far," Sheila replied with a wink. They sat together on the porch, Scout wedged happily between them. The conversation drifted the way it always did, easy, half serious, peppered with gossip from Oakwood. Sheila had an opinion about everything and never hesitated to share it. "Did you hear about Erica?" she asked, unwrapping a bundle of herbs. "Word is she packed up last week and headed west. Arizona, maybe? Somewhere without much rain or reputation." Ginny stirred her coffee, unbothered. "Then I wish her son in silence." Sheila chuckled. "You're kinder than I'd be." "I'm not being kind," Ginny said softly. "Just done." Sheila studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough." A breeze swept through, carrying the scent of mint and cut grass. Across the street, a mail truck pulled away, leaving a single envelope in Ginny's box. She stood, retrieved it, and smiled when she saw the embossed letterhead, "The Haven" on Oakwood. Inside was a handwritten note on thick stationery. "Dear Ms. Lane, the center's been open a full month now. We've welcomed 6 women already, each with her own story, each finding her footing again under your roof. They know your name. It's the first thing they see when they walk through the door. Thank you for turning your pain into a place of refuge. With gratitude, Thomas Avery and the Haven staff." At the bottom, 6 signatures trailed in looping handwriting, women's names Ginny didn't recognize. She read it twice before passing it to Sheila, who took it reverently. "That," she said, "is better than any headline." Ginny's eyes softened. That house was meant for someone. Maybe it just took time to find who. They sat in companionable silence after that, the letter resting between them like proof that peace didn't always mean forgetting. It sometimes meant redeeming. Later that afternoon, Owen stopped by. He always did on Fridays, like clockwork, his version of checking the mail in person. He stepped onto the porch with his leather briefcase and that slow, deliberate gait that made people trust him before he even spoke. "Ladies," he greeted, "you both look suspiciously at peace." "We're working on it," Sheila said. Ginny motioned for him to sit. "Everything squared away?" He set his briefcase on his knees, popped it open, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Completely," he said. "The final county filing went through yesterday. No liens, no loopholes, no claims. The sale is irrevocable, permanent, airtight." Ginny felt a quiet relief spread through her chest. "So, it's truly done." Owen nodded. "Legally, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to slice it." Sheila raised her glass of iced tea. "To airtight endings, then." Ginny clinked her cup against it, smiling. "And fresh beginnings." Owen smiled back. "You've earned both." He packed up his briefcase but lingered a moment before leaving. "You know," he said, "it's rare to see someone turn something so ugly into something that helps people. You didn't just protect your home, Ginny. You redefined what owning it meant." Ginny looked out at the horizon, the dogwoods shifting in the late light. "I didn't need to own the house," she said. "I just needed to own my voice." Owen tipped his hat, satisfied, and headed down the walk. That evening, as the sky faded to lavender, Ginny sat on her porch with Scout at her feet, and the day's letter still open on her lap. Fireflies blinked lazily in the yard. She thought of Mason, of how his name hadn't appeared anywhere in weeks. His social media accounts were gone, his phone number disconnected. She felt no bitterness, only a faint, distant sorrow. Some losses, she realized, were mercies wearing different clothes. The world didn't owe her peace, and she didn't owe it to anyone else. But here it was anyway, unearned and unmistakable, filling the quiet corners of her life like sunlight through lace curtains. Scout shifted beside her, pressing his head against her leg. She reached down, stroking the fur behind his ear. "You and me, boy," she murmured. "No more noise. Just the good kind of quiet." The porch light flicked on as dusk settled, wrapping the cottage in a soft, amber glow. The haven on Oakwood smelled faintly of fresh paint and lemon oil, sunlight streaming through the wide, new windows. The crowd was small, maybe 30 people, but the air buzzed with warmth and quiet awe. Folding chairs lined the newly polished floors, and along the back wall hung framed photos of Raleigh's neighborhoods, houses that looked like hope. Ginny stood near the podium, her hands resting lightly on the wood. A soft hum of conversation filled the room. Neighbors from Oakwood, a few volunteers, the mayor's aide, even the local journalist Hannah Price with her notebook tucked under her arm. At the front row, Sheila sat with her thermos clutched in both hands like a church lady guarding her coffee. She gave Ginny a wink that said, "You've got this." Thomas Avery stepped to the microphone first. His voice carried a gentle authority. "This house once belonged to a woman who refused to be erased," he said. "Her courage built the foundation for what stands here now. Please welcome Ms. Virginia Lane." Applause swelled as Ginny walked up, slow but steady, her gray hair shining silver in the light. She rested her hands on the edges of the podium and took a long, calm breath before speaking. "When I bought this house," she began, her voice clear and low, "I thought it would be my forever home. But forever has a way of changing on you." A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the room. "For a long time, I believed silence was the same thing as peace," she continued. "I thought if I stayed quiet, kept the kitchen clean, the taxes paid, the yard neat, then no one could take what was mine." She looked up, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "But they tried anyway." The air seemed to hold its breath. "I learned something from this house," Ginny said, her tone firm now. "It taught me to speak up, even when it's your own son." There was a moment of stunned stillness. Then the applause came, hesitant at first, then strong. Some people stood. Sheila whooped from the front row, tears slipping down her cheeks. Ginny waited for the noise to soften before continuing. "This house isn't mine anymore, and that's exactly right. It belongs to the people who walk through its doors and need it to mean something more than ownership. This home is proof that loss can become refuge, and that what's taken can be rebuilt into something better." She smiled, her voice dropping to a soft confession. "I didn't lose my home. I gave it away to its purpose." The crowd rose again, applause filling every corner of the old brick walls. Hannah wiped at her eyes discreetly, scribbling notes she knew she'd never need. The moment wrote itself. Ginny stepped back, nodding her thanks, and Thomas Avery shook her hand as the crowd slowly dispersed into small clusters, people chatting, laughing, lingering in the warmth of what had just been said. Later, when the speeches were done and the last of the cookies had been eaten, Ginny wandered through the old rooms alone. The front hallway gleamed brighter than she'd ever seen it. The faint smell of her old lilac cleaner lingered beneath the scent of fresh wood polish. The living room had been transformed into a quiet space filled with comfortable chairs, a bookshelf, and a mural painted in soft blues and greens. She paused by the window where her favorite armchair used to sit. A volunteer had placed a small vase of flowers there, dogwood blossoms, white and delicate. Ginny smiled, touching the glass. "You turned out just fine," she whispered. Footsteps echoed behind her. Sheila, of course. "You ready to head out?" Ginny turned, her expression peaceful. "I think so." They walked together down the front steps, the brass dedication plaque gleaming in the sunlight beside the door. Ginny brushed her fingertips across her engraved name one last time before climbing into Sheila's old sedan. Sheila started the engine, taking a sip from her thermos. "You sure you're okay leaving it behind again?" Ginny looked out the window as the car rolled forward, the dogwoods lining the street in full bloom, petals drifting like soft snow across the pavement. "It's not behind," she said. "It's just home in a different way now." They drove in silence for a while, the afternoon light flickering through the trees, the quiet hum of the road filling the space between them. At the stop sign by the edge of Oakwood, Ginny turned to glance back. The haven stood framed in sunlight, windows glowing, laughter faintly drifting through the open door. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile, the kind that comes from winning the right kind of war. "They tried to sell me out," she said softly, her voice steady as the road ahead. "So I sold it first." The dogwoods shimmered in bloom as Sheila steered them toward the horizon, the house growing smaller behind them but never fading.